we're glad that you have taken a few minutes to join with us. And if you were with us last year when we were launching this, we kind of took a different topic each month. This time we're doing things a little bit differently. We're just kind of going to think about what's in season and what's new. And I will do some sharing, but especially with a group this small, I encourage you all to ask questions, to stop me, to unmute, put something in the chat, whatever, so that we can be as helpful to you all as possible. We are happy that one of the things for our office is to figure out how to connect people to people and people to resources, and to make it a little easier for finding some things, not just within Christian formation, but across the PCUSA website. So if you've got any of those kind of questions, you can let us know. And we will be sharing a lot of links in the chat, so you'll want to save your chat, and then there'll be some other kinds of sharing that we'll do today. So let's see, for a little gathering question, especially as we have a really small group, we can do this easily. If you all will take turns, and maybe you can just invite each other, unmute, and I'm wondering, you can say a little bit more about your context if you want, but I'm wondering what resources, if there are any, that you are engaging with during this Lent, either it personally or through your ministry context. So that might be, a study that you're helping to lead, or something that you're providing for your families, or it may be something that is a personal way that you are engaging with a resource this Lent. So I just thought we'd share some of those, see what people are up to. Anybody willing to give it a start?
Well, I'm Bobby Dellinger. I'm from Gilwood Presbyterian in Concord, North Carolina. And I guess the one thing that we have done that was different this year that we provided, and I'm on Christian Education Committee and worship, actually. This is my first year on Christian Ed, but I didn't want to leave worship. So so I'm trying to, I've been on Christian Ed, but it's been a lot of years. But this year we did something, we've already done it actually. We used the resource from Presbytery, the Psalms of Wonder book that our chairman, who's Alice Helms, she got those from Presbytery for us. And it's just a beautiful book. And what we did is we had a Sunday evenings thing where the parents came and they were in one area to discuss how to use the book and how to use it to help their child with their faith and talk about psalms and that kind of thing. The children, we chose one psalm. It happened to be Psalm 36, and we chose that, well, part of it. We didn't use the whole psalm, but we chose that to help them write, to make cards to send to people who were either unable to come to church or were very special people in our church. So we sent those cards out and worked with them on the psalm, and we had them take turns. We read the psalm first, and we also played a Christian contemporary song from one of the groups, third day, that they could hear that people in contemporary Christian as well as regular music actually use psalms in their music. So we did that, and then we had them take turns reading a verse, and then they were supposed to tell us what they felt about that verse. And it was really, really quite good. And then, of course, we did this for about an hour. We could have used longer, but this was a learning thing for us too. And then we fed them all pizza before we sent them home. And it was just very well received. And the book is just gorgeous. The artwork in it, I've never seen anything quite like it. So then every household got a book free, because It was very, and it wasn't really geared toward Lent, but we did it during Lent as a Lent activity. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely. I was so excited. I think it was last week or the week before. Alice sent me an email and
mhm.
told me about what you all had done, and that it might
Yeah.
mean that you all offered some kinds of opportunities like that in the future. So that's great.
That's the hope. That
Yeah.
really is what we're
So
hoping. Maybe use a,
great.
even
Well,
you continue to use the book, but a different psalm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Lent's perfect time for using the Psalms. Thanks for
Mhm.
sharing, Bobby.
Yeah.
Is there somebody else?
I'll go. I'm going to take out one earbud so I don't echo. Okay, I'm going to tell you about three things. Personally, just in time, I got Kate Bowler's Have a Beautiful, Terrible Day. Yeah, Have a Beautiful, Terrible Day. And not realizing that when I got that book, it was going to have both an Advent and a Lenten devotion. The Advent is one per week, I believe, but the Lenten is one every day. So I've been doing that personally. And then at the church, one of the studies we're doing with adults on Wednesdays at lunch is, I believe, called Meeting Jesus at the Table, stories about food and at the table. And that's been really cool. I got the book before I realized one of the pastors was going to be leading something, and I'll be leading one of the lessons in a couple weeks. And then I'm really enjoying it. It's fun. It's a nice way to just take my lunch down the hall. Super easy. Some people are on Zoom and some people are in the room. And also our youth are coming on Wednesday nights. And last night was the first night I actually attended that. And I may continue to attend it. It was really cool. I mean, they're a bunch of middle school boys primarily. And man, they were engaged. They were helping read the scripture. So that was super exciting. And that's just on a different character. Last night was Caiaphas. So that was fun. And then the final thing I'm going to tell you about is with our campus ministry students, one chapter a week or 1 week a week, we're doing sacred soul care. Shaniqua Walker Barnes, I believe is her name. Yeah, that's her name. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. Anyway, highly recommend. It's both on Audible and it's a book. It's one thing a day, but we're doing it a whole week a week. So it's a lot for us to summarize for them because I'm summarizing 6 days of material in one evening. But
Remind,
we
what was
get
the title again?
Sacred Soul Care.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm gonna do you guys know it? I'm trying to grab it out of my bag, but anyway, it's really good. My co-director and I at the campus ministry did it as a Advent devotional, kind of as a test. Here it is. Yeah, okay, I gotta take myself off. Whatever, I'm on blur there. Anyway, sacred soul care, self-care, sacred self-care, not soul care, sacred self-care. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. Really good. Really, I highly recommend it.
Excellent. Thanks,
And
Christy.
we're giving the students a summary of the practices, which is something there, and offered to buy them a book if they want it. So
Great. Great. Laura or Jen, either of you?
Personally, I'm using A Time to Grow Lenten Lessons. It's a book that's available on the PC U.S.A. store. I'm a gardener, so finding lots of places to connect with that. It's great if you have anybody who's a gardener or really cares about the environment. It's a good companion book for Lent.
Excellent.
Personally, I'm reading through John Pavlovitz's Rise, an authentic Lenten devotional. I enjoy his work, so that's why I chose it for myself. One of our small groups is doing Pause, Spending Lent with the Psalms, so similar, I suppose, to the Psalms of Wonder. And then our daily devotional sent out is from PCOSA, the local Pilgrim one. I think Terry McDowell did a lot of it. And then one of our members actually took the time to go through and find 40 flowers throughout the Bible. And so she illustrated them and says the name and then gives scripture and also tells a little bit about it. So we've been able to include that with and we've had a lot of really positive feedback.
Wow. So they're photographs of flowers?
She did watercolor of them.
Oh
So yeah, it's been pretty incredible. And again, we've had a lot of positive feedback from it. So it's been good.
And how have you shared that?
She gave us copies of them, but she also gave us a thumb drive of them. So we were able to just put one in an email each morning. So
Yeah, that seems like that could be something that could then be shared beyond that in the future.
exactly. Yeah. I think today's was the thistle, and she has Genesis 3:17 through 19. So thorns also in thistle shall it bring forth to thee. So it's been a really neat thing that we just kind of came across. She gave it to our pastor. We're like, can we share this? She said, absolutely. So
Wow,
it's been neat.
that's great. That's great. Janet, do you have anything you want to share? You don't need to, but just give you the opportunity. Okay. All right. So well, thank you all for sharing. So I think it's just neat to learn about what how different people are engaging, whether it's very specific Lenten things that then we can tuck away for another year, or if it's a book that we're happen to be using to engage during Lent, but we could be reading or using some other time. So that's great. Um, if if any of you all want to drop the name of the book or whatever in the chat, then when people are saving the chat that way, we will each have it. That would be great. So now I just want to share sort of a couple of things, what I'm calling sort of what's in season, which continues for Lent. And as we know, we think about often as faith formation leaders, we're like down the road 6 to 12 months, right? In terms of thinking about our planning or thinking about resources. So although we are in Lent, most of us are already focusing our planning beyond that. So when I think about that right now in terms of what's in season, I thought I'd just share and make sure people are aware of resources that our office has related to some of the special emphasis Sundays that are on the Presbyterian Church planning calendar. And I'm gonna try to find, because I didn't put this on here, Janet, but also the link to the general calendar that has links to all of the PCUSA emphasis days and any resources from any office. But those emphasis days that pop up on the calendar, there are different ones of us and areas in the PCUSA national offices that are sort of responsible for providing resources around them. So in our office, we have 5. One of them has just passed in February, and that's Camp and Retreat Sunday. And so we had resources available for churches to use. They live up there. They live on the web all year long. And so some churches don't necessarily celebrate these things or celebrate them on the day that it is on the calendar, but they do exist. So there we had Camp and Retreat Sunday, where there's information about how to lift up the Presbyterian camps and conference centers in your local area, and generally. The one that is coming up is Mr. Rogers Day. So March 20th is Mr. Rogers' birthday, and Fred Rogers was a Presbyterian pastor. And so we like to make that connection, and we have a lot of resources that are available liturgy-wise, a hymn that was written a couple years ago, recordings of the music, printed music. We have coloring pages that you can download in all different kinds of sizes. We have ideas of ways to celebrate as a church, as a congregation, to do a neighboring Sunday, to do some outreach. And in a minute, Janet's going to put these links in the chat for you. But so some churches are celebrating that the Sunday around March 20th. Some will say, oh, it fits into our schedule in September. So whatever, but you have these resources available. There are resources, a lot of them are intergenerational, but there are some curriculum pieces that have been updated in the last year that Fred Rogers or his production company were a part of originally writing with the PCUSA in the late 1980s, early 1990s. Vacation Bible School curriculum ideas with Mr. Rogers, and so on and so on. So there are lots of things there. Another one, special emphasis day coming up is Older Adult Week. And so we celebrate older adults the first Sunday in May. And then we partner with the Presbyterian Older Adult Ministries Network, POAM, to put together resources that way. And Janet, if you want to go ahead and drop that whole thing in, and if they want to open if they want to click on something, they can. So Older Adult Week, we do these resources with POAM. Once again, we have liturgy resources there, as well as suggestions of ways to interact with your older adults. And I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. But that's the next special emphasis day in our area. Then in August, the first Sunday in August is College and Young Adult Sunday. And we partner with U.S.A. Collegiate Ministries to provide resources for College and Young Adult Sunday. And there will be new resources posted for that August date in another probably 6 weeks. So the resources are there from the past years, but there will be an updated resource for August. And so this is a great way to lift up those who are going off to college, maybe some people who are going into the military, who are involved in at a young adult year, a gap year, all those kinds of things, but just ways to lift up our college and young adults. And I also know of some folks who found it, it's easier for us to use some of these resources in May related to when our seniors are graduating from high school, or, so however the resources work for you. And then our last special emphasis day is actually a week too, and it's Christian Formation Week. In Christian Formation Week, we celebrate the Sunday after Labor Day. And, stereotypically over the course of time, that's sort of been around when kickoffs have been around new programming for faith formation. Of course, there are a lot of us with kids going back to school in August who are doing more of those things in August. So that once again, the resources can be used whenever. And there are liturgy resources, but there are also resources around back to school celebrations, like back to school, like blessing in the backpacks, or a way to have an intergenerational kickoff for all your faith formation for the fall. How to start a children's personal at-home library, like giving, and we'll give you a link to a new quick sheet about that in a few minutes. So there are lots of different, so we have these different emphasis days. In addition, there is a link that goes to the general landing page on the PCUSA website that's called Church Calendar. And that's a place that you can see all of those special emphasis days that are on the PCUSA planning calendar. That's people who have the printed calendar. And there are live links to different resources. So when it's Presbyterian Disaster Assistance Blue Shirt Sunday, there's a link that tells you the things about that. Or when it's World Day of Prayer, or any of those things. But there is a way for you to get those resources. So does anybody have any questions about special emphasis days? No, that's a lot of information, but I just like to make sure people are aware of all of these resources. And of course, they're all free downloads, more than anybody could need, but especially for faith formation leaders. And, with special emphasis days, there's lots of worship liturgy ideas that you can pass on to the worship planners in your context.
It's not really a question, but I was recently up in Pittsburgh, and they had Mr. Rogers' stole at the Heinz, and it's the neatest thing. Like the top of it looks like his little sweater, and then even at the bottom it has a pair of Keds.
So where is that?
It's at the Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh.
Oh, I hope it's there when I go in June. So
I'll send you a sync.
that is so cool. So I am in what's called the Educators Neighborhood, which is part of the Fred Rogers Institute.
Okay.
It's a cohort that I applied to be in this year. And so it is really neat. And you have people who are, early childhood educators, and you have school principals, and you have public school librarians, and you have faith leaders. And then, you do some stuff all together in these big Zoom groups. And then you have a little small group like mine was yesterday with faith leaders who are in different contexts. And they're also having the second Fred Rogers conference this summer in June. It's a 2-day conference. And so I'm going to be going to that conference, which I'm excited about. But Carl Horton in Presbyterian Peacemaking Program and I are waiting to hear. We applied to do a workshop on Fred Rogers as peacemaker. So I don't know if that will happen, but I think that would be kind of neat too. So yeah, that is so cool, Laura. Thanks for sharing that.
Again, random, but it had just been there.
No,
so
it's not random at all.
Thought it was neat.
Not random at all.
Mm.
Definitely. All right. Well, if you don't have any questions on the special emphasis days, and I appreciate y'all passing on that information to others that are in your circles. Now I want to take a little bit of time with sort of the resource roundup around what's new. So we have a variety of things. So first up, we've been working in our office. So we work with the 5 organizations that do kind of cover the ages and stages related to faith formation. So I was talking about UKirk Collegiate Ministries, POAM, Presbyterian Older Adult Ministries Network, Presbyterian Youth Workers Association, so all the youth folks. Let's see, PCCCA, which is Presbyterian camps, church camps and conferences folks, so all the camp directors, and APSE, the Association of Partners in Christian Education. So we do a lot of work together with them, collaborating in projects and stuff. And a project that we've been working on for more than a year now with the Older Adult Ministries Network is a new module of resources that are going to live on their website that are helpful to people in local contexts for working with and supporting older adults. And it's called Expressions of Ministry. And I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek. It launches probably a soft launch might be as soon as the next month to 6 weeks, and then it'll launch right in right ahead of Older Adult Week in May. And so let's see, I'm going to screen share the landing page, which is up, and then just so you can see how there might be some ways that you could share this with folks in your context. The content comes from a variety of people across our denomination. And so this is on the poam.org website. There will be this landing page. So there's a little bit of information about ways to engage with older adults, getting to know older adults. And then there are a couple of videos that were put together, which have faith formation leaders from lots of contexts around the country, and some ways to think about that you can engage with the content. And there are going to be some subpages from this that are on. One will be the guiding principles of older adult ministry, and Joyce McEachin Walker has done a series of videos that are short presentations about working with older adults. And so there will be a whole series of those with reflection questions and PDFs to download and such. There will be a subpage that is about theology around older adult ministry. And so once again, so Sarah Erickson from who was at Columbia Seminary, just recently retired. She will be the guide on that section with a series of videos. And then there's a third page, which are sort of expressions of ministry in your context. And this will be a place where there are quick sheets on different topics. So for example, older adults in loneliness. So how to support as a church, support your the older adults, or starting a care partner support group, or putting together devotions for older adults. There's also a series of videos from millennial leaders who are in ministry with older adults. So these are younger pastors who work in churches with predominantly older adults. And so the blessings and the challenges and the tips and the things that they have. So anyway, all of those things are there. And then there's an extra page, which is just links to lots of other resources that POAM has. So those are that's going to be coming. And I think it's going to be a great resource that people can go back to and find as they're looking for different things. They could get a group together to walk through, a series of the, videos, say the guiding principles, and do the reflection questions together, whether that was a committee that was specifically working with older adults or the CE committee. So you'll be seeing more about that. And just for fun, I thought I would share one of the videos for a couple of minutes here. See if I can get the sound to share too. All right, can you see the screen? All right, and I'm going to assume the sound is working unless you all tell me differently.
Older adults today are varied or multifaceted, curious, involved, selective, and realistic.
Wise, relevant, vibrant, overlooked, supportive,
committed, confused, frustrated, sometimes dismissive, and cautious.
I think that today's older adults are adventuresome, they are active, they are inquisitive, and they are my parents.
Wise, committed, generous, vulnerable, and caring.
Older adults are incredibly diverse. They are introspective. They're navigating change. They're increasingly internet savvy, and they're legacy minded.
Faithful, matured, very wise, experienced, hopeful, and with a purpose.
committed, resilient, curious, the story keepers and the storytellers.
Active, growing, spiritual, family-oriented, younger acting.
Surprised, giving, challenged, engaged, long-living.
Resilient, content, hopeful, adaptable, survivors.
Loyal, vital, interesting, independent, fun-loving.
Committed, active, faithful, backbone of the church, lifelong learners.
Teaching, feeding, healing, and welcoming.
Fun, loving, knowledgeable, curious, and spiritual.
Experienced, afraid, eager, opinionated, and willing.
Living longer but not healthier.
Ongoing learners who are very curious and eager to be relevant.
Want to leave a legacy.
I think that older adults live a life where they're unbothered. They, by what other people think, they hold on to their values and live in a way where they're realistic about the time they have left and what they want to achieve.
Baffled, worried, grateful, hungry, and resilient.
Hopeful, trusting, cautious, giving, and responsible.
Dedicated, tenacious. They're deeply rooted in our community, and church is at the center of their lives.
The people who are living their better half-life.
So that gives you just a taste. So there are several other videos. One that's a group of folks just sharing very shortly. Most of the videos, these first ones are, sort of 4 to 7 minutes. There are some of the ones that are the presentation ones that are a little bit longer than that, each of them. But there's ones that sharing, all kinds of ideas of ways that churches are involved with older adults. So we think some of this would be a way to give some people some new energy and ideas and confidence related to how they are involved in older adult ministries in their own contexts, and maybe some people they can connect with and relate to going forward as well. People to say, oh wait, I want to see if I can find that person and make a connection or a contact and learn something from them. So we're really excited about that new resource that's on its way. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on to the next one? All right, so do you all know about the Around the Table initiative, the Christian parenting and caregiving initiative that is related to which we are able to do because we have a grant from Lilly. So we have a lot of resources and some cohorts that will be coming in some pilot ones probably in the next 6 months, but cohorts the following year. And then there are a variety of resources that are going to come out of this Around the Table initiative. And the first sort of branded resource around that just dropped last week, which is a podcast. That is about the conversations that you can have at the table as a family, as a grandparent and children, or single parent and teenagers, or whatever somebody's family context is. And let's see, I think Janet's going to drop those in the links to those in the chat. You can find it on Apple and Spotify and Amazon. The hosts are Michelle Thomas Bush and Cliff Haddocks. And their first guest on the podcast, the one that dropped last week, is Mark Yaconelli, talking about stories that you can tell around the table. And it's very conversational and just sort of kind of some simple ideas. In that case, about sitting at the dinner table and how to have conversation at home. And these are done in such a way that they will work not only in our church context, but also could be shared in other contexts in terms of with other families that we encounter with our outreach and so on. So we hope that you all will check out those resources. I was listening to the first episode this morning, and it's great. And as a part of that, we're going to build a resource list that will that'll go with the podcast, so that any of the resources that are listed, that somebody names in the podcast, then people will be able to go and find those books or the story cards and such. And let's see, the next thing is that, so we have the solar eclipse coming up. Anybody doing anything interesting for the solar eclipse? Anybody? No? Maybe?
Well, I live in the 90% zone, so I'm just staying here and we're watching it with the campus ministry students. So I can't travel, so I'm just gonna stay in the 90% and call that good.
Well, we may have something that will be helpful to you then, that is getting ready to come out. Janet, where are you going?
I am going to Ferncliff for their Fern Clips. And
I wish I could, but have fun.
Yeah. So one of the things, one of the resources that will be posted next week that's related to Around the Table, but has to do with the eclipse is, Ferncliff Camp and Conference Center is hosting an intergenerational event for the eclipse because they're in totality. Jocelyn, who is the camp chaplain, has put together a free downloadable resource for at home related to the eclipse that has some conversation and wondering questions, an idea of making a pinhole, whatever you call it, to be able to look at the eclipse. It has a couple scripture passages and a psalm prayer. And so it's designed on a half sheet so that those of you all who are in partial or total totality could send this as a link to your families and others in the congregation, or you could print them out on a half front and back sheet and put them in as a bulletin insert. So it's really basic and simple, and just a half sheet back and front and back. So look for that to be coming out next week. And here in a minute, we'll make sure that you have the links to our Facebook page where things drop regularly, and to our newsletter and those kinds of things. So if you want to learn more about all of the things that are happening for the Around the Table initiative, whether that is more resources or cohorts, there is a blog that you can subscribe to that then you'll get the updates to the blog posts. And there are a couple of new blog posts that will be posted this next week and the week after. So Janet will put the blog link in there. And then a few other new resources to make you guys aware of. So the Opening Doors to Discipleship website is a collaborative project between the Association of Partners in Christian Education and our office, which has lots and lots of training resources. Let's see, Bobby or Laura, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. Laura, no? Okay, so can we put Opening Doors to Discipleship in general in there too? So it has a lot of resources that are very helpful for training faith formation leaders. And there's a whole section on theology. If you have a new part-time person who's working with children and youth who may not have a Presbyterian background, for example, or something that your CE committee could work through. There are also specific resources around teaching methods and teaching styles for different ages. And then there are quick sheets which are downloadable, fast ideas or short videos on specific things, like including children in worship, how to have a conversation with your congregation about that. A new one that has recently been added is a section there's a disability inclusion for ministry section with several videos on how to include people of all abilities. And there's a new video and I think PDF in there around being neurodivergent. So ways to include children and youth, but everyone who is neurodivergent, and some definitions around that. So that's a new resource that's there. So Opening Doors to Discipleship, they are adding new resources on a regular basis. So that's a place to go explore if you haven't, Laura and Bobby, for sure. Then we have a couple of additional new resources. One of them is so we're building a children's home library. So one of our faith formation colleagues, their church had this practice of every September or August when they kick things off, every child gets a book, and each age group has a different book. So the kindergartners are all getting this book, the first graders are all getting this book, the second graders, and they have enough books. And this is a church that probably worships, I'm going to say maybe 100 on Sundays. I'm not sure. So it's not a big church, but it's not a small church, right? And they figured out a way to fund this. And I think they have some, additional like special people who want to make sure kids get books. And they make sure they have enough copies so that if there's a visitor there that Sunday in that age, they're going to get the book too. And then the idea is that over kindergarten through sixth grade, and then I think they add like an older Bible again when they get into middle school, but that they're going to have 6 or 7 books. So that quick sheet, which she has put in there, has information from this church formation leader on how they developed that program and how they chose their books, and then suggestions of books. But obviously you could use whatever books you wanted. So that's just kind of a neat new idea. And then this winter, we were able to release a whole plan outline with all the activities and details for retreats. So one is a grandparent retreat, for instance. So if your church was like, we want to do something with our grandparents and grandkids, and wouldn't it be cool? And we could go to our local camp and conference center and do this, but exactly like, what would we do with them? Well, you can download this whole thing and adapt it for your context, and has a schedule, has all the activities, has your Bible study, has everything, has everything that you would need. We also, besides the grandparent camp, there are 3 youth related ones. There's a creation care for youth, youth mental health, and a mission work camp. These are also set up so that a conference center, a camp and conference center, they might use it and then advertise and say, hey, we've got this mission work camp, and they would use the curriculum. So those can be found at the, that is not the correct, that it should be peaceusa.org/quicksheets. Yeah, sorry, we got it. It's all good. So many links. So those retreat modules are great. And then one from our colleagues in the Youth and Triennium office. And they have a new quick sheet out that's, let me introduce you to Gen Z. And I think we all need to be introduced to Gen Z. So it's kind of a basics of things to keep in mind when working with Generation Z. So that one is in there as well. And just going to round it out by saying that Earth Day is what? Let's see, that April 20th, I think. Earth Day is coming up, and the PCUSA works with Creation Justice Ministries, which is part of the National Council of Churches, to work on resources around Earth Day. And so they have a new resource out called Plastic Jesus, which is all about all the plastic we use and thinking about taking care of creation. So I have shared a million resources, and once again, you'll be able to save the chat. But do you have any questions about anything that I've mentioned or anything you want to know more about?